Hi, welcome to Mimi's Little City Homestead. I'm Dana. Today I'm going to make pie, and I'm making an apple pie. I have a new gadget for my KitchenAid mixer, and I know a lot of people do have KitchenAid, so I wanted to show it to you because it saves me a lot of time, because if there's nothing I dislike more, it's peeling apples. I love apple pie, but I don't like to peel apples. So I got something, I used to have a manual one of these, but this works a little bit easier for me, and I just use it on my KitchenAid, so I'm going to show you how this works. So here I just have a bowl of water, cold water, with about a half a cup of lemon juice in it to keep the apple slices from turning brown. And this is the peelings, so I'm going to save these. We're going to use these for a project later on. Not apple peel jelly, although you could make that with this. I have different plans for this, but how this works is you take your apples and they tell you to cut them off square. And having not used this before, just gonna go ahead and do what it tells me to do. But this is the apple where I've sliced it off. Move that forward to where the core is. And you kind of stick it in there to start out with. Turn it on. And that's it. So there's your core, your peels, and there's your sliced apple. And that's another thing too. I always hated cutting up apples to try to put them on or inside a pie, because I would usually always cut it way too thick. And these are thinner, so it should cook pretty even. And then you just take your core off of, well, you back this up. Take your core off, put your apple back on, another one. I might try, matter of fact, I think I'll try this one without cutting it flat on the end, just to see how it works out. Well, that one worked out pretty good. So I have a combination of Gala apples and Granny Smith. They say a variety is, and usually I always just bought one kind of apple, but this time I thought, okay, I'll try it and see maybe two different kinds of apples this time. So we did that, and this ought to be, I will even this one off there. This ought to be a lot quicker than doing peeling on my own. Usually I make my own pie crust, but I have a lot of pies to make because tomorrow's Thanksgiving, so I'm making pies with store-bought crust. Nobody seems to mind them very much. I think they have a different taste to them than my homemade pie crust, but everybody else seems to think they're okay. And so I got them this year to work with, make things faster. I'm all about trying to get it done quicker. And we're gonna save not just the peelings, but these top parts that I'm cutting off, and the cores. I'm gonna save all of those. Just gonna throw them in the fridge when I get done peeling my apples. So you take it and put it on the blossom end and push it right on there. Line it up with this, the core. That's pretty quick. If there's a little bit of skin still on it, I don't mind that. As long as there isn't a lot of skin left on here, that's fine. So anyway, that's one of the things I really like about my KitchenAid, is that it has so many cool attachments to it that you can get separately. So I just get them a few here and a few there, you know, one here, one there. And since I'm getting ready to do applesauce, I thought this time I would get the apple slicer peeler core and try it out and see if it's fast, because that'll make making applesauce a lot faster. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel all the rest of my apples. So another cool thing about this, even if I cut off a teeny bit of apple from the top to flatten it when it needed it, it still only peels it like this, which are way thinner peels than what I do. I mean, I try to do it thinly, but I don't do them that thin. I'm still saving apple, I think. This also makes zoodles. There's like 4 attachments to this thing. I'm gonna show you. I'm not sponsored by them, but I really like it, and I like all their little gadgets they have, but there's other blade sizes, and this is the zoodle maker. You don't have to have, you can change the blades out. You don't have to have this on there that peels. It comes apart and goes back in the box. So if you're interested in it, I can leave a link to it below. But that was pretty quick. That gave me enough apples for 2 pies, according to my directions, and I didn't have to peel, and they're all nice and evenly sliced, and that'll make it better for baking. It should bake evenly. So I'm gonna move on to my crust next, and I'm gonna bag these up and stick them in my fridge. And that's all there is to taking it apart. So what I've noticed with these store-bought crust is they're usually not big enough for my pie pan, and you can't stretch and pull and yank on them once you get them in the pie pan, or you're going to stretch the dough. And a lot of times when it's baking, especially if you try to pre-bake it without using a blind bake, which you would use pie weights or beans to put in the bottom to hold the pie shell up, but it can still stretch back, and then your pie crust will shrink and slide down into the dish. So I try to get mine out a little bit ahead of time, and they're not very easy to unroll, and flour it a little bit on the back side and the front, and just roll it out a little bit more so I don't have to pull and stretch it to get it to fit into my pie. And I usually try to roll one way, turn the crust. And I think I like the pie crust better after I've rolled it out thinner. I don't pick up on that different taste. I don't know if anybody else besides, maybe it's just me, but I don't pick up so much on that taste once I've rolled it out thinner. So just kind of push it down in, don't pull it though. If you don't want it to shrink, you kind of just ease it in. So this recipe called for 6 apples, and I did 12 because I'm doing 2 pies. So that would be about half of this. I'm just going to put a few in here. And unlike pies, I used to make apple pies, I always mixed my cinnamon sugar with the apples. But this one says actually to put the apples in the pie dish and then put your cinnamon, sugar, nutmeg on top of that. So that's what we're gonna do. And I'm putting on, and we'll see how that works because I'm putting on a crumb topping also. There's one. That's about half. Okay, so in this bowl, each pie gets half a cup of granulated sugar, so that's 1, and a half a cup of brown sugar, packed. Is there anybody that doesn't pack their brown sugar? Most recipes say it, but I just assume everybody packs it in every recipe, but I could be wrong. So 1 cup of brown sugar, be a half a teaspoon each. So 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of nutmeg. I don't have fresh nutmeg. I've looked everywhere for it and I can't find it. I have a grater, but I don't have a nutmeg, so we use the stuff in the jar. I would like to find one though. And a sprinkle of a teaspoon of lemon juice in the pie. And I don't like my apple pie oozing out all over the place, so I'm gonna put just a small amount of flour right along with the sugar and the spices. And it says just sprinkle it over the top of the pie. And that's what I do. I got this recipe from my sister. We made it at her house and it was really good. Come from an old recipe club, I think, card. So I thought, oh, I'll make it again. It was really good. It's a half a cup of butter. Again, brown sugar, half a cup. Oh, it's my brown sugar bear. I don't know if you've seen these, but you wet them in water, you soak them in water for a few minutes, and then you let them drain off and you put them in with your brown sugar, and it keeps it moist and keeps it from drying out, and it works really good. That's what was keeping me from getting all my brown sugar out, but he needs to be re-wet down anyway, so. And then a cup and a half of flour, teaspoon of cinnamon, and that's it. Kind of like what went on top of the pie already, but this is the crumble streusel part. We're going to cut it in with a pastry cutter. That was cold butter, so it's going to take a minute to get it all smushed up together, but it has to be cold to keep the streusel topping. So don't start out with soft butter. Make sure that it's cold out of the fridge for the streusel part, and then just cut it in like you would a pie crust. Make it to about that much. Just kind of go in with your hands. My hands are clean. I usually forget to say that, but I always wash my hands, and sometimes, well, a lot of times more than once when I'm making things, because you gotta wash your hands in between touching stuff and everything else. But put your hands in there and kind of rub the butter into the flour. Work it in really good. Like if you ever made apple crisp, you've probably done this with your butter and your oatmeal and the things that you put on top of it, kind of working the butter in with everything else, getting the flour and sugars all mixed up, but still leaving it in pretty good sized lumps here and there too. This looks more like streusel now, and it was a lot easier to do than to keep doing it with that pastry cutter, but that's the idea. And then you take that and you put it all over the top of your pies. Try to cover it up as much as you can all the way to the edge of the crust. Of course, a little bit's gonna stick up. So these are gonna bake at 375 for about 50 minutes or until the apples are tender. So I'll bring you back when they're ready to come out of the oven. Well, if you try this pie recipe, I think you'll really like it. I know this won't be out until after Thanksgiving is over, so I hope your Thanksgiving was good and you're looking forward to the upcoming holidays like I am. Thanks for stopping by and baking with me, guys. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in my next video.